We here at Trinidad and Tobago Television have had a very, very good night, a very peaceful night when one compares it with what was happening just before and around 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon and for a couple hours when we had quite a lot of firing in the area and we were preparing for what looked like an assault. But throughout the entire night we had no gunfire around these parts that we would have heard. We were able to dispatch 3 wounded people from here, and I stress not any members of Trinidad and Tobago television staff, but there were a couple of civilians who received gunshot wounds as they were passing, and I think one Jamaat al-Muslimin member, they were taken to hospital. We were able to arrange that. Another one who was wounded decided that he would stay in.
Voice of the iconic Jones P. Madeira. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. It is July 27. Now, this day means so much to so many people, and everyone has their personal story. Now, in times past, we have spoken to people who were physically present, like Jones P., and present in the madness as it occurred, and we continue to do that today. But this morning, we want to push past the obvious and speak with the family members of one such person. Now, as head of news and current affairs of Trinidad and Tobago Television, or TTT, Jones P. Madeira was a key hostage during the attempted coup, firstly announcing the event, then keeping the nation up to date along with Dominic Kaliprasad, often, if not always, with an armed militant at his side. We are very happy to have Laura Lee Madeira-Williams, daughter of Jones P., and she is here this morning. Hi. Good morning, ma'am. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
No, that intro, seeing the footage, hearing the sounds of your father, what's going through your mind when you hear this?
Well, it's ironic that you would ask, because I remember I was 13 going on 14 at the time. My sister could have been about 16. My youngest brother would have been about 5. And both my sister and I, we were actually in Port of Spain at my dad's office on that said day. We were planning for a normal family vacation or August vacation, and we were doing pre-shopping for the vacation, and we left his office probably around between 2:30 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah, he dropped us off. I believe the Arima Maxi taxi stand was at the bottom of George Street, close to Express House at the time. And he dropped us off, and we boarded a maxi and headed home, you know, not knowing what was going to befall us for the next 6 days. We arrived home probably around 4:30, 5 o'clock. By that time, I don't think my mom knew exactly what was happening at the time. However, after settling down, you know, from the trip for the day, mom received a call from dad, and I answered the phone, and he sounded a little bit concerned, more concerned than usual. So is your mom there? It's like, sure, speaks to mom. And in the conversation, he tells her what's happening. He says, this does not look good. It really does not look good. I'm not sure what's going to happen. We're going to be here a while, probably, and I'm not sure if we're going to make it out alive. And probably about 20 minutes afterwards, when we turned on the TV, and we actually saw him on set with Abu Bakr, I believe, to his right, and the armed men behind him, the reality had set in that this wasn't a play. It wasn't a show. This was real. And then began our 6-day ordeal, so too his.
Now, in terms of going through that 6 days, what are you thinking about when you're not seeing him on air?
What's happening? Has he eaten? Has he slept? Did he drink any water? Is he hurt? Is anyone else hurt? He would call. We would receive probably for the first night, we received about 3 phone calls. But my father, in his unselfish nature, because he's a very caring person, he would call us and let us know that everyone else is okay, putting himself for last, as he normally does. He would call and he would say, I just want you all to know that everyone's okay. We're all right. No one's, no one has hurt us. We're okay. And, if you speak to anyone else, let them know that we're okay. And my mom, being the praying person that she is, encouraged him. And she said, you need to pray. And you don't need to pray for yourself. You need to pray for everyone else. You're gonna come out of this. You're gonna be okay. There were times that he would call her and he would cry. And he said, I can't do this. And she said, yes, you can. Yes, you can, and you're gonna come out of this, Day 2, we got probably about 2 or 3 phone calls, again, reassuring us that everyone was okay. They had not eaten anything, although I think there was some stuff there that the Muslimin would have brought in with them, but I guess probably out of fear and anxiety, they would not have eaten on Day 2.
But what I'm hearing from you in terms of like that selfless, caring nature of your father was actually borne witness to by other people who shared in that ordeal. I know one person specifically, Simeon, people call him Sayo, a cameraman. He was saying that Mr. Madeira is one of the people who actually kind of kept morale up. He was always thinking about people, if they were giving, if the militants were giving him special privileges,
right.
He was asking for that, for those to be afforded to everybody who was there.
Yes.
And it seems as though that is just the nature and the character of the man.
That is, actually that is his nature. He also instilled that nature in us, others before self. And he always spoke of, that he wanted to make sure that everyone was taken care of. Persons, if there was anyone there who had diabetes, that, that he would try to get them out because of medical purposes and so it was his nature to care for other people. One person he always mentioned, and sometimes even now he gets a little emotional, it's Raoul Pantin. Mr. Pantin was a very good friend of my father's, and it was as if he was mostly affected because of this ordeal. And after the fact, he would call Dad after the incident, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We have a rule in our house. When the phone rings between 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning, it could never be good. It's never good news at that time. And Raoul would call and he would speak to Dad probably for an hour, 2 hours, just recounting the entire ordeal. And when Mr. Pantin had passed, my father felt that he had left with all those emotions.
Now, in terms of actually getting a view of what took place through your father's eyes, we actually want to go back to 1990. TTT was under siege, but you've never necessarily seen and heard what it is your father was going through as he walked through the building. So we actually want to do that now. So we have a package. Roger Dwarka, he actually walked with Jones P. Madeira through the building of TTT. So we want to take a look at that and get your thoughts on it also.
Sure.
So we do that now.
At about 6 o'clock, a few of us were occupying here. There was a lot of confusion in these corridors. Quite a lot of running and screaming that we couldn't understand from the inside. When we understood it was when we were literally hijacked by 3 or 4 gunmen who pushed us out of the area, and of course this is new, and threw us on the ground in this area to lie face down and told categorically that if we lifted our heads or if we spoke, they would blow our heads off. And then from these corridors emerged Yassin Abu Bakr holding Hazel Ward's on the shoulder, and as he moved towards me, he started, literally jumped, and told me, listen, you've got to virtually, and I'm paraphrasing him again, I don't remember the direct quote, assume control and ensure that everybody stays calm. They didn't want to hurt anybody, but it led into the main studio. And we went into the studio, and we were all put to sit down close to the main news desk. And you would know that that was a very active period because we were leading up to the 7 o'clock newscast. So we remained there, and that's where the action continued until we did broadcast after broadcast, facilitating Imam Yassin Abu Bakr to do his own broadcast. And while the rest of the staff and other people who were visiting the station were put to sit all around the desk, I, for some reason, was given the kind of responsibility to coordinate. And I was called into an office which took me beyond this room where the control area was. And I ended up in the operation office where the supervisor of the daily shift was. And this is where the action kept taking place until the following morning. Now, the following morning, when it was clear that the broadcasts were being cut and not being transmitted on channel 2 or 13, I don't remember which one, but it was on one channel, and Bernard Pantin, who was the program director, had taken a team of people up to the transmitters on Cumberland Hill and cut that signal. There was some vehemence, some irritation, a very agitated Abu Bakr who said, no, we've got to resume our broadcast because I'm not hearing from my people, and they need to hear my message. By now, I should be shoulder high on people through the streets of the city. And never happened, but that added to our problems the following day. And half of us marched off from that area inside of the room and went to these corridors. We anticipated hearing shots, and when there were shots, we anticipated that the people were gassed, but we feared the worst. So up these stairs, and this here replaces a glass window, which couldn't serve as a shield to the machine gun fire that came through it ever so often, particularly during the 3 attacks that we had. Members of the Jamaat were lying all here with their guns. And as we got to this point again, which was the area from which the bullets came, it was possible that if they were shooting, people would have been killed.
Jones P. Madeira recounting his experiences and just the way that he is articulate as always, just you're there. So I'm wondering, 26 years later, and the fact, looking at it now, you're actually realizing that part of the area that you were waiting in to come in, the door that you actually came through, this space that we're in, with the middle, the ground zero, as some people would say. Mm-hmm. How does that make you feel?
It's eerie when I walked in this morning, because as a child, I mean, I walked these halls, and it's a lot different than obviously what it used to be before. It holds a lot of memories for me, thinking that this area, this is where everything happened. I somewhat felt, I feel angry. I was a bit angry at that time. Again, being a teenager and not understanding really why this was happening. Because being a teen, you wouldn't be privy to the information of the land disputes and whatever issues, you know, the Jamaat would have had with the government at the time. But I just saw it as, why is my dad there? Why are the other hostages there? Why is the Jamaat doing this to families? I was angry. And so too, I'm sure the families of the other hostages would have been just as angry, because they took away our freedom. If even it was just for 6 days, they took away our freedom. So I was angry, I was upset.
We actually, on that point, we take a small break. We come back with more. We're asking you to stay tuned. This is Good Morning Trinidad and Tobago. July 27, we are discussing the event right now from the perspective of Lee Madeira-Williams. Stay tuned, we have more in store.
And the various other parts where these negotiations have been taking place. I can say from my personal experience that the Imam and the Brotherhood have been very anxious this morning that they should have a meeting with Canon Ollie Clark and Archbishop Anthony Pantin and Bishop Clive Abdullah. They, as a matter of fact, as early as 5:45 this morning, wanted to find out whether any connection was made on that score, and I feel very confident that they are extremely willing to discuss.
Welcome back. We are speaking about July 27 through the eyes of Lee Madeira-Williams, and getting right back into it, Ms. Madeira, I'm wondering whether or not your outlook, how has your outlook on life changed because of the events of July 27, 1990?
I would say that I am more cautious of my surroundings. My father has always taught us to be cautious, but we're a little more cautious now. My children, I don't want to use the word cautious again, but I'm very wary of the places that they go, the times that they go, who they actually go with when they're coming back home. But I'll give you, it's a joke. After my dad was out, you would know that we still had the curfew implemented. Probably about a month afterwards, you know, there were coup parties. So my dad actually, he actually told us, he said, you know, you all can't stay in the house, you all need to go out and free up a little bit. It's like, Dad, but there's curfew. He said, no, don't worry about that. I'll drop you to the party. So he would actually drop us to parties and pick us up. And I'm not ashamed to say that he actually did that until I was 21. So he was very cautious of us also going to places and who we're out with and where we are. You know, as with any parent, you know, you just need to be more vigilant, and we are.
Okay, but in terms of that support that you got from your father, and you're not ashamed to say up to 21. Actually, some people would say they're proud to say up until that time because it's not available to them. But at that time, what was your support system like for both you as well as the family? So,
because of where we lived in Arima, it's central Arima, we had a lot of support from family, a lot of friends. I remember in particular one of my dad's schoolmates, Baliram Miraj, who I think at the time was the president of the Supermarkets Association. He actually called my mom the morning after and, you know, asked her to send me a list of what you need. And probably about 3 hours afterwards, we had 2 vans backing up into the yard with foodstuff. He even sent things that weren't on the list. And we were able to share with neighbors, you know, and family and friends. When it wasn't curfew, our house was filled with a lot of people. At nights, sleeping in the bedroom wasn't an option because we didn't want to. Our living room became a dormitory. I remember Dad mentioning that there was a war room in TTT. We had a prayer room. Our living room became a prayer room. And we prayed for the families of the hostages. We prayed for Trinidad and Tobago every day, sometimes 2-3 times a day. Again, my mother being a very praying woman, you know, when she says, it's time, let's do this. And we prayed every day. I'm also thankful that social media wasn't as prominent in those days because the rumors started to fly from day 2. Facebook wasn't around, but we definitely did have the town crier. I remember one morning, a gentleman coming to the front gate and, you know, telling my mom, well, listen, you know, you don't have to worry again, you know. I just heard that they blew up TTT and everybody's gone. What do we do? Who do we believe? And, you know, me being a teenager and having to assist my mom in dealing with my 5-year-old brother who was totally confused as to what was going on around him. He was like, Laura, what did they say? Why did they blow up? I said, no, that's not true. And Mommy's answer to everything was, let's pray.
Coming out of this, 26 years later, every time we come up to, because there have been times where the date has not been as visible or as highlighted, but what is the one positive you hope or you see coming out of this period in our nation's history?
I would think, or I would hope that TNT would be a lot more vigilant. This day, 26 years ago, I mean, I have to give Trinidad and Tobago credit. We showed as a people that we were not going to stand by and rally with someone who would believed in taking up arms to get a point across. As a people, we did not believe that that was the way. And I'm hoping that we would be more vigilant in the way that we do things, the way situations are handled. I'm not happy with the crime situation in the country right now. I cannot say that I'm not fearful that we may have another coup. I'm praying that it does not happen. But I just wish that everyone would be a little more vigilant.
All right, so Laura Lee Madeira-Williams, thank you so much for your presence here and allowing us to take you on this journey back to that day 26 years ago and giving us your perspective and your insight. So once again, we want to thank you so much for taking the time and have a blessed one. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. This is Good Morning Trinidad and Tobago. We continue to highlight the events, getting perspectives from different people as it relates to July 27, 1990. Stay tuned.